Hello and welcome to Dig It. I'm Peter Brown and hosting the show with me today is Chris Day. Hi Chris.
Hi Peter.
Wow, September already.
Where has the summer gone?
Honestly, Chris, as we get older, time does get quicker, as they say.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Indeed.
I guess we must apologise this month, listeners, because there's a lot of background noise, I'm afraid. It's a glorious sunny day here whilst we're recording. So we're in an outdoor building, but we've got a new polytunnel going in for the mail order, which is creating a little banging sound.
Indeed.
And got the usual aircraft and all the rest of it going over. So apologies if you get a bit distracted by odd noises. Anyway, back on to more serious matters. What's going on in the garden, Chris? What's in the news?
Let's start with some what's on.
Brilliant.
In view of the fact that we're into September. And interestingly, our charity of the year, Peter, obviously Garden Organic, is doing something quite different through the whole month of September. In fact, from the 1st to the 30th, they are going to be promoting 30 thrifty biodiversity projects each day. So it's
30 each day?
Yeah, well, 30 over the the month of September. So
right, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I was going to say...
That's a lot.
That's an awful lot
That's
otherwise.
been very greedy, isn't it?
But 30 different projects. Brilliant.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
nice
so,
one.
So it's Organic September at Garden Organic. So if you follow them on any of their socials, look for hashtag Thrifty30, which has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? So that's good. Over the 1st and the 3rd of September is the Gardeners World Autumn Fair at Audley End House and Garden over at lovely Saffron Walden. This is going to be quite an interesting event, isn't it? Because it's one of their new departures for Gardeners World magazine. So good luck with that. And then over Tuesday the 5th to the 10th of September, it's the RHS Wisley Flower Show.
The big one.
It is a big one for them,
Yeah.
And it's obviously a 5-day show. So that should be good. Now the next one, this is really I'm really fascinated by this one, Peter. It's over Saturday the 16th and Sunday the 17th of September at Lillingston Castle. Now Lillingston Castle, they have basically a Mexican celebration. They call it Cactus in the Castle, which has a lovely ring to it, doesn't it? And over the weekend, basically, this is over in Kent, you're basically invited to the World Garden that celebrates lots of garden plant heritage.
Right.
And you can browse the 30 or so leading nurseries, and it has quite a lot of unusual sort of plant collections there as well. And it's all hosted by Tom Hart-Dyke. Now, he was in the news... probably about 20 odd years ago. He was the gentleman who was kidnapped when he went plant hunting.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a story which is so he went over and got kidnapped, and it's an amazing story. If any of our listeners have read the book of his, it's absolutely fascinating. Maybe one day we'll get him on as a guest on.
Sounds like an interesting story.
Yes.
I mean, you don't think plant hunters are generally not sort of political targets or sort of armed force targets, are they? So
it was just
interesting why they kidnapped him. But
indeed.
maybe he had a dangerous looking trowel or something.
Yeah, that pocket knife just probably wasn't good enough. So that's interesting. And then on Sunday the 17th, we've got another rare autumn plant fair at Board Hill Gardens over in Haywood Heath. Yep. And then the next biggie, as far as big plant shows, really, is the Malvern Plant and Garden Fair at obviously those wonderful showgrounds in the lovely rolling Malvern Hills.
And that's the last weekend of the month,
It is, yeah.
The penultimate weekend of the month, 22nd to 24th of September.
That's it, yeah. And then, we've got to give this a plug, Peter, because it's the last day of September into the first day of October. It's our apple weekend at the Garden.
Again, yeah. Well, my apples are doing really well in
Good.
the allotment. I was a bit worried about them earlier in the year because I was thinking with the weather, are we going to get any crop? And this year, blackberries and apples are doing amazingly.
Fantastic.
My squashes are an absolute waste of time.
No.
They're about... I think that the biggest one now's got one runner about 12 inches long.
Gosh, that's not good.
No fruit. A couple of flowers, but just absolutely nothing. Courgettes, similar. How are yours doing?
okay. Beans. I'm literally overrun by beans. Both runners and climbing French. It's been a good year for those, I have to say.
Really?
Strawberries were very short season. They were nice, but I didn't have the.
But I've got a flush of strawberries coming through now.
Have you? Oh,
Yeah.
oh well. There you go.
And
Yep.
yeah, your beans are doing well. My beans are now, I'm going to say, 4.5, 5 foot.
Oh, okay.
Since I come back from holiday, they've definitely got beans on them now.
Good.
And I'm
Yeah.
hoping in maybe a week or two's time, I might get my first crop.
Yeah, indeed. But I think that the weather's just been so much against us this summer, hasn't it? It's just been obviously obviously an improvement in August, which is good to see. But let's see how things fare out. But tomatoes have been a definite disappointment this year. They're full of trusses, full of green fruits, but not one ripe and one in sight. So that's really late for me.
Have you got a banana underneath them?
No, I haven't. Oh, of course.
Because the turpentine or something like that.
Oh yes.
That comes out of the banana skin. You can eat the banana from what I can remember.
Okay.
But yeah, you just chuck some old banana skins on near the plants and hopefully
Yep.
that'll
Hopefully.
help
Indeed.
get them to sort of colour up a bit.
I sincerely hope so. Yeah, it's good. So Apple Weekend, we've got our good friend Jerry Edwards, our RHS Apple expert.
He's coming to identify them, isn't
He
he? So
is.
if you've got some apples in the garden that you don't know what variety they are,
Yeah, bring a couple of fruits, a bit of foliage along with you, and
hopefully Jerry can identify them for you.
Yeah.
And equally, going back to Garden Organic, Chris is back with us again.
yes,
isn't
Chris
he?
Collins, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he did the show. Last show, wasn't it?
Yes, back in
a couple of weeks ago, and that was a great. Just learning more about him. He's a lovely character, isn't he?
Fantastic.
And
yes.
yeah, he's going to be here, so you obviously come and interact with him if you want to.
Indeed, yeah.
And apples.
Well, indeed, and we have the mid-shire groups with us as well to give some really good practical instruction on how to make apple juice.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so plenty going on through the month of September.
So we're not having the beekeepers here with the honey show this year.
Sadly not. They've moved over to Pastures New.
Okay, so looking at the website there, the North Bucks.
Yes.
Beekeepers Association. There's 4 or 5 different societies that are all sort of get together. They're having their show the weekend before Apple Weekend this year, and that's over in York House, Stony Stratford.
Okay, so literally just down the road.
Yeah, so but on the 24th rather than our weekend. So that's interesting, and I hope they have lots of success with that.
Indeed.
Brilliant, good stuff.
Yep.
So what's been happening in the news then?
Yeah, you'd think, sort of August, September, it's a quiet time, but there's still lots going on. One news story which caught my eye, especially at this time of year, is we're thinking about our sweet peas, because it's been quite a good summer for them. Certainly mine have been doing quite well, is the fact that a new species could offer the potential of food.
Oh, right.
So,
because have you ever tried eating a sweet pea?
I haven't. No.
I seem to remember as a child.
Right.
I did. And they were really bitter.
Oh, okay.
Really
no sweetness.
Not nice at all.
No.
Because I thought they were a mange too. And I seem to remember
What a disappointment.
my mother laughing at me and saying, "You silly fool, you shouldn't don't eat things you don't know what they are." And but yeah, from memory, they were horrid.
Yes.
Nothing like a mange too.
Well, fortunately, these are slightly different. Although they're called, we put them under or group them under the name sweet pea. They're basically chickling or grass peas. So it's Leiothrus civitas. It's a hardy legume, commonly grown for human consumption and livestock, and it's used in obviously areas such as Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Ethiopia, and Algeria. So it's out there, but why not bring it to the fore as a possible food? So yeah.
Well, why not? Yeah.
And it's been grown for a long old time as well, 8,000 years.
Wow. That's really interesting because it was it last month we were chatting about baked beans.
Indeed, being trialled in this country.
Yeah,
yes,
they've obviously been doing a lot of work with peas and beans recently. That's really interesting.
But yeah, basically this new form, they're going to breed out basically all the nastiness to the flavour. So they'll get rid of the bitterness and obviously have a bit of sweetness. And of course, it's going to be very low in toxins, so it will be nice and healthy to eat.
Brilliant, great stuff. Well, maybe we'll look forward to a plate of sweet peas on the table next year.
Going to be some good marketing with that, I think.
That's it.
Yeah. And we often talk about sort of gardens in the headlines. Well, a large garden obviously very close to the garden centre here, Blenheim Palace is undergoing quite a big, worldy sort of reimagining.
And having a revamp.
A revamp, a reimagining as well, I think.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
so
okay. Because that was one of Capability Brown's.
It was indeed.
Very similar to Stowe, sort of all
yeah.
lovely lakes and valleys and sort of...
Basic tree planting and
big
vistas, aren't they? That's the thing there. But
okay, so what are they up to? They're building a waterfall, are they?
Yeah, they're doing lots of... Yeah, so basically they're creating lots of new areas and they're trying to, I think, go back to the historic roots of the gardens. So they're trying to, probably looking at maybe some of the previous plans there to make it more feasible. But no, it looks really good, and that's going to be a big old project. It's going to take some time, but obviously when you go there as a visitor, you'll start to see a few changes there as well. And I mean, yes, certainly, I think it's all about the grandeur, isn't it, of any of the large Capability Brown designs. So
it'll be interesting to see when it's all finished.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
indeed. Yeah.
This one.
And our good friends at the charity, the National Garden Scheme, they've announced their new projects for 5 communities, and this is something which they do actively get involved in. I think when we were chatting to them earlier on in the year, they were saying that they encourage people to put in sort of projects and themes for them to possibly give some of their money out to. So those have been announced. So quite a few of these are going to be projects benefiting from up to £5,000 in funding and professional development programs. So quite a few. So including Sanctuary, which is a project to safeguard garden space for women with serious mental health issues in Gloucestershire. One over in Staffordshire, a funding of health clinics. So very pertinent and very, very useful projects, which of course is an extra benefit of you going and enjoying a garden through the garden scheme.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And I guess as we gardeners know, mental health is always improved by a good hard slog on the spade or lawnmower, and it gets you focusing on other things.
It certainly does.
Yeah,
yes.
all of the schemes that they've devoted, or all of the schemes that they're donating to are, like you say, sort of there's a GP surgery with a wasteland, and it's all mental health things that they're supporting,
great,
which is great.
Fantastic,
and, as we all know, it's good for our brains, but also for nature, isn't it? So
most
that's
definitely,
nice to learn about, isn't it?
So good on them, and obviously we look forward to see it. Well, we will see the work they produce over the time. The next story, I must admit, this only came through to me yesterday. Colorado beetle scare in the south of England. That's the headline.
Okay.
Now, obviously, we're all probably familiar with Colorado beetles. Certainly, when I was at school, I do remember seeing the posters going up in the 1970s about this beetle. If it got into the country, could cause absolute pandemonium with our potato crops. And obviously, it's basically an American pest, which obviously, if it gets over to the UK, could cause absolute havoc. And apparently, it's been coming in on leafy vegetables, things like salad leaves, fresh herbs, and basically hopping on, using that as a free ride into the UK. So, as we know, Peter, biosecurity is so much more important now, especially now we're out of the EU. And obviously, seeing 2 sightings is a little bit concerning.
Well, definitely, because I'm guessing the sightings are out in the wild, as it were, or in somewhere. And like you say, sort of, you've only got to get that established, and we've got another problem. So these 2 sightings, one was in Kent and the other one in Hampshire. And I would say we'll put a link on the show notes, Peter. But just be familiar and be aware what a Colorado beetle looks like. And then if you are producing some tomatoes or potatoes in your garden, that's the point. Because I suppose tomatoes being the same family as potatoes, is it Solanaceae? They're going to be able to cross.
Well, they may move over across to have a bit of a feed, but it's worrying. But as I say, it's not necessarily scaremongering, but it's a bit of a warning shot to all of us to be more vigilant when it comes to certain pests in the garden, especially the Colorado beetle.
Well, I guess as so reading the article a bit more. It has been here before, and there was an outbreak in 76 and 77, and both were eradicated. But I guess back then maybe they were able to use slightly stronger chemicals than we're
more than likely
generally using today, and equally, it's hopefully
Yeah.
it won't take hold, but
No,
we'll see.
indeed. Yeah, indeed.
Then we've got Squires are electrifying. Now, I know they, sort of through the grapevine, I heard that they're putting a lot of car chargers in their car parks, but their delivery vehicles are now going electric as well.
One step. And I think Squires garden centres are all sort of quite close to London, aren't they? Or in that, so the obviously the areas where obviously congestion charges are being made. So perhaps this is it's ULEZ, isn't it? ULEZ scheme, yeah. So that's probably another reason why, a lot of company vehicles will have to go over to that for paying, for electric, and to obviously keep their costs down for moving around that areas. But well done to
fair play
Squires.
to them. Well, good job.
Yeah.
And Blue Diamond, surprise, are in the news again. What are they buying this time? They got another garden centre, or
Not this time, Peter.
Okay.
They're buying actual production nurseries, so plant
Fair
growing nurseries to
Yeah.
add to their obviously amazing repertoire of plant supplies. And I suppose it's a bit of self-preservation, isn't it? If you've got
Well, I guess if you've got the nursery, you can grow all the plants you need for yourself, and
Yeah.
as long as they get the predictions of what they need right, and the season
Indeed. Yes, a bit
works
more-
out weather-wise, they do even better than the rest of us who have to rely on
Yeah.
supply and demand, don't we? So,
Yeah, it's a bit more difficult, but I mean they've got some obviously really good nurseries. These are across the whole of the country, over in Gloucestershire, over Bardsley, Evesham. So quite a wide net of locations as well, which I suppose is good.
Yeah.
Leeds as well. But at the end of the day, they're suggesting that 60% of plants grown by particularly Glendale, which is a big supplier to the rest of the gardening trade, including all independents, including Buckingham Garden Centre, is good. So if we're getting that through, but it does make you feel to a certain extent that we are sort of losing that independence of nurseries, perhaps.
Might make it, obviously the specialist nurseries that we use at the garden centre aren't on the sort of scale that Glendale is, but obviously, if one of the bigger suppliers is no longer available to us independents, then it's going to open the market up for more independents. But equally, I suppose, it might also mean that we end up having to import more, which is a shame.
Yeah, which is the last thing we want to be doing, really, if we can support British growers, which of course and that's I think what has happened over the last 2, maybe 3 years, Peter, isn't it? We have moved over to UK supply because of obviously the problems and of the bureaucracy of bringing plants
since
in.
Brexit, it's been a bit of a nightmare trying to get things in, and then obviously with the peat ban, it's going to make it even more fun.
Difficult. Yeah.
We'll see, but anyway, well, fair enough. At least Glendale has had its future secured, hopefully, for another few years, and
which could only be a good thing in this difficult time as well. Yeah. And a story which we touched on actually when we were talking about peat-free composts a couple of months ago, Peter, is the fact that a lot of the carnivorous plants, the pitcher plants, the Venus flytraps and like,
our children's favourite.
Indeed, if you can get hold of them. Again, they've been in short supply this summer, as we've found out at the garden centre here. So, but the good news is that the good old RHS scientists have successfully grown 2 particularly popular variety of carnivorous plants in a peat-free growing media. So this is a bit of a first.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it's the Sarracenia, so that's the pitcher plant. That's the one which produces those.
That's a big, long, tall, sort of tubey type plant.
big trumpet sort of thing at the end, isn't it? And of course, the flies are seduced by it almost looks like a landing platform, what you'd see at an airport. They almost look like landing strips to the insect, and they go down there and they gorge on some very sugary material. Then they get a little bit intoxicated, shall we say, and then they can't get out because all the heads are downward facing. So that particular plant looks like it's going to grow well in this peat-free formula, which is going to be good news. And I mean, they're obviously looking at the fact that obviously before then it was sphagnum moss was the material which you would use for growing, which of course is going to be more and more difficult to use from next year. Yeah, so that's some good news. Whether that's the same for Venus flytraps, we wait to see.
Well, from our point of view, that's the biggest seller, isn't it?
It is,
I mean, you sell 5 of those for every other sort of carnivorous plant, and Well, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, indeed.
And Lambeth is getting a new green. I saw it's a nice story where, for a change,
yes. So
cars are not bulldozing through things, and creating more pollution, we're getting some space for pedestrians and flower beds.
That's right. So this is at the London's Garden Museum, and basically, obviously, it's a major centre of horticultural excellence.
Yep.
If you've never been, it's well worth a visit. It is set, really in the heart of London town, and of course, it's well known because it's the burial place of plant hunter John Tradescant. So John Tradescant.
Okay.
We think of the Tradescantia, very popular house plant.
That's where the name came from, is it?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
And he's 17th century, so it's been there a long old time, and obviously it is an amazing place, and it curates a lot of wonderful displays, lots of archive material, so it's a good place to spend a couple of hours delving. But this project is going to be obviously improving some space outside, which
So-
will be good, and we look forward to seeing. Like they're saying that it's going to be it should be probably next year when we see the fruits of their work, but
Be interesting to see.
indeed.
Bit of a sad one. Wilko's, the sort of high street store, has
Yes.
folded.
Yes.
Administrators are now picking through the bones, no doubt, and pulling
Yes.
out all the good stuff, and they'll sell
Yeah.
off some of the sites. But I don't know what'll happen to it, whether they'll be able to.
Yes,
The sports director will come in and buy it up and keep all. But I mean, to be fair to them, they were a bit of a sort of jack of all trades, and they had a reasonable range of
Yes.
relatively cheap gardening products.
They did.
and
They used to
stuff,
do a
didn't they?
lot of seasonal gardening in there, and I think it's a very populated area that size, like almost like the Woolworths situation, which
Yeah.
we talk back, affectionately that tried to do too much, and I suppose there's lots of competition with like B&M stores and the like.
I think that's the trouble, isn't it? They weren't really a specialist,
No,
and
no.
the likes of their bird care offer, their tool offer. It was all you can get it everywhere
Yeah,
else,
everywhere,
and
yeah.
go Tesco's and get a similar sort of range.
That's
and
it, yeah.
They don't really have the expertise to sell the tools, but
That's it,
anyway,
yeah.
sad. Because
It is very sad.
another family sort of owned firm, wasn't
That's
it? And
right,
a big one at that.
and a lot of jobs going as well, which is equally as sad too. So
Sorry to hear about that.
Yeah,
It's
indeed.
not good.
No.
And I see Dave Carey from Fothergills is retiring,
He
or
was-
moving on to new pastures, should we
Yes.
say. I don't know if he's retiring or not.
No,
but
of course, one of the founder members of Mr. Fothergill Seeds, of course.
yeah, his family were in the start. It started it all off, and I mean, to be fair to Fothergill Seeds, it's a big old brand, isn't it?
it is
It
now,
encompasses, I say, Darlac Tools, Johnson's Grass
Grass
Seed,
seeds, of course, yeah.
and they've already sort of made ventures into other marketplaces. So,
Yeah.
as we're discussing earlier, Australia and
the
the-
Far East, yes.
but essentially Harwood Capital Management, who's a venture capitalist, we would call
Yes,
them, or
yeah, yeah.
investment group, are taking a majority share
Sure.
now in the company,
Yeah.
and have big plans to improve and diversify and
Yeah.
expand the marketplace for
Which
it,
is great, yeah, because they have got such a strong brand, haven't they? Hence, that's why they're so popular in garden centres. I mean, they're in, they say they're supplying over 5,000 garden centres and retailers in the UK alone, and that sort of suggests to me that they're doing something very right, doesn't it?
yeah, they got their fingers in many places.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
But yeah.
So,
So that's good, and hopefully they'll carry on growing and
Yeah.
being fundamentally horticultural based, rather than sort of trying to diversify too much and water down their
yeah,
good
that
points.
brands. Yeah, indeed. And it's interesting, Peter, on the back of that, and it literally happened around about the same time that news story broke. They had their obviously their trials day for
Oh, right, yeah.
for the gardening trade to visit, and basically they showcase Johnson Seeds as well as Mr. Fothergill Seeds, and they basically are increasing their ornamental and edible offerings by 40. So 40 new
40
varieties.
new varieties, that's good.
Which is fantastic, isn't it? Yes.
Brilliant.
So plenty to look forward to on the seed racks next,
And let's
next
hope
January.
those 40 varieties aren't standard ones that are shared by like
No,
the
let's hope
Thompson Morgans, and that they're actually unique ones.
Exclusive, that's what we want.
Yeah,
yes,
a-
which I'm
a-
sure
a
they will
nice,
be. Yeah.
nice flavoured fruit and veg as well.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what
So
we need, isn't it?
it's all good stuff from them.
Cool. And I must say, Chris, I came back from holiday, and obviously I went to Spain, and you guys had 2 weeks of rain, and I came back, and my lawn must have been 6 inches tall. It was enormous, and
Yes, it's
done really well this year, but I see Mr. Hedges-Gower, great chat with him must be a year or two ago now, told us all about how to look after your lawn and what have you. Gave some really good tips.
Fantastic, yes.
He's going a bit anti-dwarf ryegrasses now.
Yeah, so he's basically saying that gardeners should stop using ryegrass seed or turf because he reckons that not only does native grass look better, it'll give you a healthier lawn. So this is good. So, although, dwarf ryegrasses might be a little bit tougher, but actually they don't often give you the density which, of course, you need in your lawns. But, so, I mean, it's quite a little bit sort of sidestepping to the norm of lawn care, but...
Fair enough. I think the problem is fundamentally we all buy our lawn seed in boxes and we don't really have much choice as to what mixture there is in. It's like it's this one, that one, or the other one.
Yeah, so you need to peruse all the ingredients on the box carefully, the makeup of the mixture.
But
to see that
less ryegrass in his eyes is better. But equally, the other thing that hit the news I saw recently was there was a survey. I think it was only about 500 people that were surveyed, so probably not a very good survey. But 25% of them thought that artificial grass should be banned.
Yes, which sort of goes with most people's thoughts at the moment. I mean, it's getting such a lot of flack, isn't it, in the gardening trade?
But I think now there's a couple of companies out there that are doing recycled plastic grass.
Yes.
And you think, well, totally agree with the sort of virgin plastic grass being banned or not being so popular, shall we say, amongst the public. But if we're recycling plastic bottles or whatever it is that they make it out of, surely that's not a bad thing, is it?
No, and in limited usage, I'm sure it has got its place. I'm not totally against it. I think in the right place, it's fine. However, I think for some of the large use of it and the fact that it heats up and of course it affects our wildlife, I think for that reason alone, being obviously
natural grass is better.
It is. I
mean, it's obvious, isn't it? All the bugs and what have you that we get in the lawns.
But what has happened, obviously, since the lockdowns of 3 years ago, we're seeing obviously a bit of a rebound. So sales of artificial are much lower. They reckon they're 48% lower than year-on-year demand, and of course. That tells you something, doesn't it? That we probably all do yearn for that natural. And also we've got this whole idea of rewilding, bringing nature back into the garden. No mow May. There's lots of spins on getting us to think more carefully about our lawns. But it's interesting that the lawns are taking up so much of the column inches in the magazines and newspapers at the moment.
But then you think, how many houses do you go to with a garden that don't have a lawn?
Very few. Yeah,
exactly. Most people, even if it's a small lawn, a patch of grass is definitely a quintessential English.
Indeed, yes, it is
part of the garden, isn't it? And
it is,
from an exercise point of view, I always think, well, at least I'm exercising once a week.
Indeed, indeed. And the thing is, with lawn care now, it's become obviously more technically advanced, especially with robo-mow type equipment on the market now. All that sort of. All that sort of advancements there, and obviously the improvements in feed and weed products on the market too. So, generally, science is now helping us manicure our lawns, and that's probably taking a lot more of the heartache of trying to grow them and nurture them.
That's it. And I think the bottom line is, if you're like me and you like wandering across your lawn without any socks on, they feel so much nicer and cooler.
Yes. It's perfect.
Now, another article that obviously in the press most years is water conservation.
Water wisely, yes.
Yeah, I was very pleased this year, Chris, as I said earlier, when I went to Spain, you had 2 weeks of rain, so my hanging baskets did really well this year. I haven't had to worry about them at all.
Fantastic.
But equally, there's no harm in putting a water butt in, is there?
Certainly not, no, if you haven't.
It's a bit of an expense to start off with, but the water's better for your plants.
It is indeed, yes. And it's soft, no chloridine in it. It's not any of the nasty nitrates. And a lot of your plants, especially your ericaceous plants, will really thank you for it too.
So definitely another plug, I guess, from us for water butts.
Indeed, yes. And our top 5 for this month, Peter.
Yes. What's been selling well? What are we doing? Perennials.
We
this
are,
month,
perennials.
isn't it?
So these are perennials we sell in a 1 litre pot. So it's the most popular size of buying a plant. Not hugely
Nice and small, so
nice
you
and small.
can get it established well. And
That's it, yeah, and a good range of varieties. That's the thing. 1 litres generally are more available. So going in reverse order, number 5, Leucanthemum Snow Lady, which is one of those wonderful daisies. If you like daisies with big white flowers and bright yellow eyes, that's the one for you. Number 4, Penstemon Pensium Wedding Day. So penstemons, a lot of people lost them last winter because of the cold December. So penstemons have been in high demand, so it's not surprising that's at number 4.
Right.
Number 3, Delphinium Black Knight.
Okay.
Obviously a lovely dark flower.
Dark flower delphinium.
Yeah.
They're always a lovely flower.
Fantastic, yeah. And if you can grow them before the slugs get to them, even better.
Yeah.
Number 2, Lupinus Gallery Mix. So these are mixed lupins.
Yeah, okay.
And at number 1, are we surprised? Well, Lavender Hidcote.
It's a good old strong lavender.
It
does
is.
well.
Yep, and
Feeds the bees. Brilliant in that respect, I always think, and smells so nice.
And smells and so resilient in the sort of summer we've had. It's been obviously very mixed, but
because it does well in the dry, and it does okay as long as you've got relatively free drained soil.
That's the secret, isn't it? Yes, yeah. And of course, I've just been harvesting some of my lavender flowers now for using in the house or whatever we usually do with them. But it's a good time to get those.
Well, it's great for making potpourri.
That's it. Yeah,
I love the smell of it. I know some people say it smells of old ladies, but I like it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's but lavender of all varieties, but obviously Hidcote just seems to ticks all the boxes, doesn't it? Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well that's interesting.
Yep.
So it's our favourite.
Oh dear.
Favourite bit. Jobs. What you got for us to do this month, Chris?
There's so much. I mean, September for many people is the start of the gardening year. If you think about it,
right? Okay,
if we haven't already had to do a lot, but it's bulbs, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, because they're all in the shops now, aren't they?
They are indeed. Yes.
We've done our Christmas potatoes, so it's now on to bulb planting.
Yes, which I noticed have sold really well this last few months. So well done for everybody who's planting them, and look forward to those nice crops on Christmas Day. But colchicums, obviously the autumn crocus and the cyclamen hedropholiums, they're the ones which really need to be planted first. So if you come into the garden centre and you're looking at the bulbs and think, oh, tulips, a bit early for those. Yeah, maybe, but amongst all those sort of miscellaneous bulbs, there'll be some really good ones to be planting straight away. Because you'll get flowers, hopefully, this autumn.
Right, brilliant.
And again, a little bit of work, unfortunately, but doing a little bit of sowing of hardy annuals, so things like cornflowers and Cerinthe and scabosa. All these are really, all great for our pollinators.
But they grow well next year, don't they?
They do, yeah. So if you've got a spare bit of ground, if you've got a spare bit of space in your allotment, sow a few of those, you can get them growing nicely. Then you can transplant them into the flower borders when you start taking out your summer colour, next month or into November. That would be good as well. And in the next week or two, you will start to see in garden centres and nurseries, obviously the early hardy pansies and violas.
Yeah.
We're in a bit of, obviously, when we're in sort of August into early September, we are in a bit of a lull between crops. But it's nice to see that the pansies and violas when they arrive, because you know that winter's on its way. But yes, but yeah.
Yeah, because this year bedding has been a bit hard to get for some garden centres, hasn't it? And
certainly,
the last month we've been selling lots of grasses, and it was nice to see the displays we put together.
Yeah.
As normally you think, bedding plants, but this year it was bedding plants, grasses.
Heucheras and hostas, and of course dahlias. Of course, dahlias have been a good popular seller through the month of August too. So. Which is good. But it's all about this transition period. And I always think really September's a little bit early, really start changing our containers and pots, but we need to start thinking about what we're going to go into our containers as well. So a lot of those plants, things like heucheras and grasses, will be perfect components for our winter displays.
Pots and things like that.
Yeah. On the house plants, so certainly nights are getting a bit chillier. Certainly they're drawing in a bit, so that means our house plants, if they've had a bit of a summer holiday, perhaps need to be thought to be bringing those back in.
Yep.
And I would say, Peter, the most important job is to do a quick slug test. Make sure they're not carrying any unwanted slug snails.
Yeah, you don't want them in your front room, do you?
No, you don't.
Climbing over the sofa.
Yeah. So give them a good clean up, and obviously just check underneath the pots, put them back into a nice saucer, and just keep an eye out on those as well. But get those, moved into the normal slots for the winter period as well.
Yep.
Still time to take a few cuttings. Your fuchsias, your salvias, your proper pelargoniums, your scented geraniums, that type of thing. They're really, really good. And a customer this morning actually inquiring how to do some bougainvillea.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
still a bit of time to do that if you've got a little bit of warmth in a greenhouse or a cold frame. So
Right.
try and get those nicely rooted before the winter too.
Yeah.
And September, good time if you haven't already done it to give your evergreen hedges a little tidy up as well. All this rain, of course, this summer has meant if you trimmed back in beginning of July, they've probably found that the hedges
They've
have
all grown
grown
back again. Yeah, I know
which-
my laurel hedge is ready for another chopping again. It's
Yes.
never ending. Not as bad as Leylandii, but
No.
it's certainly not far behind. It's
Yeah.
a good one for growing.
Yeah, but if you've got, I'm going to say topiaries as well, and maybe, if you're doing topiaries, give them a little bit of a feed, probably the last feed of the season, I would say, once we're into September, early part of there as well. And sunflowers, have you been growing any sunflowers this year, Peter?
I never got round to it.
No,
I promised my children that we would, and I never did. So.
Yeah, Slow's got most of mine, but I've got two, and they're not growing where they should be growing. They're growing in pots.
Oh, right. Okay.
And one's about 4 foot tall. The flowers are coming on it, and it's going to look spectacular, but it's not where it should have been. And it's just a reminder, really. Leave those flowers on to feed the birds.
Yeah, because they come and pick all the seeds. And I noticed in Northampton we've got a flock of ringneck parakeets
Oh, right,
that
okay.
escaped out of the council's aviary. I would say 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Oh, wow,
I first
okay.
spotted them, and you see them. They land on sunflower heads and they absolutely love them. They go mad for them, and it's nice to see them all the seeds being used. Isn't
Indeed,
it?
yeah, and you'll probably find where you've left your plant, you'll have some little seedling sunflowers next year as well. That's par for the course,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
That's it. And I guess I was looking at my potatoes the other day, and the first ones are, I would say, going yellowy browny now. So I'm guessing that's a good indication that I might be able to dig them up.
Oh yes, but a bit of yellow to the foliage is usually an indication that they're ready. So so maybe just lift a plant
Start
and
a
see
trial one and
see
see
how
what
you
we've
go.
got.
Yeah. So far, I mean, it's been, I think, quite reasonable for a lot of root crops this year, albeit a little bit slow. I'm thinking about my carrots; they're probably at least a month behind to what they were the last couple of years, but it's been worth the wait. That's for
Brilliant, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a nice fresh carrot out of the ground is so lovely. It's a
So
bit-
sweet. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
sweetness you notice from shop bought, isn't it, as well? On fruit as well, Peter. Yeah, if you've got any summer fruited canes of your raspberries, that's the time now to take those out. So anything which is has cropped, just follow it back to soil level and trim as close to the soil as possible.
Right.
That'll then hopefully stimulate. Well, hopefully you'll have plenty of other shoots already in place for next year. Tie those in if you've got some sort of system where you've got wires and strings.
Yep.
Because those are the ones you want to leave in place.
because
for your
it's
crop
second year. They only get fruit on the second year old.
Correct. Yes. So any new shoots which have developed this year will give you a crop, or should get you a crop next year. And also, maybe give them a mulch as well. Just get and do a bit of weeding to sort of put them to bed for the winter. on that
Okay,
sort of side
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
That's good.
And I suppose we're almost into the picking of apples and pears season. So obviously you always with fruit you tend to cradle the fruit, don't you? Just lift it slightly.
Yep.
If it parts from the tree, then you know that it's ripe.
Ready to
So
pull
well,
off.
yeah.
But the way I always think is, unless it's obviously being very windy, have a look at the windfalls.
Yes.
And if you got windfalls on the ground, generally means
That's a
it's
good-
about
yeah.
time to start picking. And
Yeah, for sure. Another thing, certainly if you got your tomatoes, if you're finding that you're getting obviously ripening fruit, but you've still got a lot of foliage on, it's worth just taking off and removing the lower foliage to expose the fruits to a bit of sunshine, a bit of warmth.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yep,
And
okay.
also it also cuts down It helps the air circulation, which hopefully will keep the any mildew and any rots too, and also keep an eye out for blight, of course, because that is around at the moment.
Well, especially it's been quite wet, hasn't it? And we don't want the blight going down into the tubers.
Indeed, yeah, tubers or onto your tomato fruit. So take those leaves off if you see them infected, and obviously lift your potatoes as soon as possible with the hope that you'll be able to use them fairly freshly then.
And that way they don't rot off, do
they? Indeed. So quite a lot in the fruit and veg side to be doing. And then obviously we're talking about good old bulbs. Garden centres will start be getting in the hyacinths, the prepared hyacinths for Christmas.
Yeah, get them in the bowls ready for Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah. I like to do mine in pots first of all, then I can basically eke them out and put them at the same stage once they've sprouted a bit, rather than putting three plants in. I tend to do that.
And then that way they all flower at the same time.
Yeah, otherwise
Chris. That's brilliant. Good tip, thank you.
It's a commercial tip the growers always use, and it seems to work, which is good there. And if you've got a greenhouse, despite the fact we've not had lots of sunshine this summer, if you have put some sort of cool glass or something over to keep the sun rays out or to reduce the temperature, now's the time to start removing that and give it the greenhouse a good clean as we go into the autumn to capture all that light. Which
get the J's fluid out, give it a good scrub down, and clean it all up ready for next year.
That's it. Yeah, and I think vigilance is really the most important thing in all parts of the garden this time of year. If you do see any rotting leaves, take them off. Cleanliness is next to godliness, don't they say?
That's right. The other thing on cleanliness, Chris, courgettes.
Okay.
So every year, they obviously, when they start getting towards the end of the season, you get that white. Is it botrytis or
probably powdery mildew?
Powdery mildew, is it?
Yeah.
Am I meant to be ripping the leaves off? Do I just leave it?
Yeah.
And what's the best way to deal with courgettes?
Yeah, so if you've got a little bit of mildew on just one or two leaves, I would say take those leaves off. If the whole plant is infected, then I would say remove them where they're near the fruit, so you get light and air to the fruit. But obviously those leaves will still photosynthesize, they'll still generate food, albeit in a much more reduced way. The trouble is, if you completely defoliate the plant, it's going to stop growing. So,
well, this is the thing. I was having a debate with someone. They seem to rip their courgettes up at the first sign of any sort of mildew, and I'm like, well, I wait for them to go yellow and die. The fact they've got a bit of mildew on. Yeah. I don't care, because it doesn't seem to make any difference to the courgettes themselves. I still get the fruits off them.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the thing. It's knowing, the plant's still growing. It's affected to one of my cucumbers, actually, has done exactly the same.
Okay.
But it's still producing flowers, and it's still producing fruit. It's got probably half the leaves are mildewed. I've removed some of the worst affected ones. I've just increased the amount of feed. And fingers crossed, it will carry on for another few weeks.
Brilliant. Okay, so don't be too harsh on them. Let them grow with a bit of infection.
Yeah. And this year, as we know, hasn't been easy on them. I mean, the humidity has not been particularly good. And again, in the greenhouse, you might want to do a little bit of repotting. Amaryllis bulbs, if you've been growing those through the summer. Mine flowered very late. I think they were in flower around about April, May, much later than normal. So they're still got lots of nice green leaves on. So I'll carry on giving them a bit of water and feed, probably all right until next month. And then I'll withhold the watering, let them die back for a couple of months, and then I'll repot them with the hope that I'll get some flowers for Christmas. So
excellent.
To do that
I can remember our podcast with Jane Perrone. She's a real fan of amaryllis.
Yes, she does like them, and I can see why. They are amazing flowers, and there's so many fantastic varieties out there, singles, doubles, and a whole range of colours as well, including some amazing green flowered varieties, which are amazing too.
I'm not so fussed on them. The whites, I mean, they're not.
Yeah.
Not what I call green. They're sort of greeny white, and they're a bit. I like a nice red one personally. I think they look amazing. Colour. Or the pure whites.
Pure whites are good. Yeah.
The green ones I think.
But as amaryllis go, I mean, you do see them these days as cut flowers. They are very much back. They are very in vogue at the moment.
Well, they're big old flowers.
They are. Yeah, and they do give you a real wallop of colour, don't they, in a vase? So yeah.
Well, and I'll say something else controversial. I think they smell a lot better than hyacinths.
Well, yeah. Yes, yeah.
But anyway,
no, that's fine.
to be fair,
Yeah.
good to know that
Yeah.
they're not that hard to grow.
Indeed, yeah. And finally, Peter, there's a few sort of garden maintenance jobs to think about. I mean, we talk about the lawn. Yes, certainly a good time to get the good old rake, do a bit of a workout to get rid of that moss.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are we allowed to get the autumn lawn feed out yet, or
Yes,
is it
we're
leave
in
it another month?
Yeah. No, I think from the middle of this month, middle of September, absolutely fine. Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, so,
So it's too late to scarify now, isn't it? So probably not worth scarifying.
I wouldn't do anything, mate, unless you've got a lot of moss and you want to create your own hanging baskets this year, this autumn. If you've got lots of moss, that would be a good option.
Good use for it, isn't it? Yeah,
recycle
definitely.
it. But yeah, indeed.
Okay,
Yeah.
great stuff. So feed the lawn.
Yeah, and then maybe do a little bit of reseeding, overseeding. In view of the fact that the moisture content in our lawns and our soil is so good at the moment, work with the weather, do a bit of overseeding there. Our ponds, obviously.
Ponds? Yeah. What about ponds, Chris?
Yeah, so in the next few weeks, I'm sure the first of the autumn leaves will start to fall. So
Yes, it's always a good time to put a little sort of... I used to use pea netting.
Okay, sort of put it across the whole
just
pond.
sort of half-inch netting, and that just put that across the top of the pond, and then every week or so take it out
before they get too weighty and
get rid of all the leaves, and then that stops all that rotting down in the bottom of your pond.
Sure.
And you, I guess, pull all your marginal plants out, give them a bit of a titivation, and sort of tidy them up, and
Indeed,
the ones
that'd be a
that
good
are
job.
going to die off, cut them back.
Maybe divide them if they've made big clumps as well. That might be a good job to do for some of the iris and such like. Or maybe getting a little bit.
They always grow well, don't they?
They do. And we're talking about water butts as well. Maybe give those a check over. I mean, normally at this time of the year they're usually fairly empty, so you'd be able to give them a clean out. So you need to sort of pick your time. If when the water level does drop, to decide whether you're going to give it a good clean out, a good sterilise with a proprietary.
It's a good idea. I don't think I've ever cleaned a water butt out in my life.
I've done it a couple of times, but it's something you don't often remember to do. That's the problem.
It's a good reminder. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, once we get into the month of September, it's all about really collecting those leaves or any vegetation to get that compost heap on the go. And I think that's the most positive thing to end September in the garden is get your compost heap ready and productive.
Yeah, well, I must say, I do love... I've got one of these Greenworks vacuum cleaners. I love it. So much easier to get the leaves out. You just go and vacuum them all up.
Fantastic, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
And they sort of get half shredded as well as they go through the motor, and then chuck them onto the compost heap.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to next year to see how my compost has actually come out. Because I haven't done masses other than pile it up, but it's in a pallet, and... I think if I get time, I might transfer it now into a different pallet because
give it a turn.
Turn it over, and I'm hoping I'll have some nice compost to start my no dig gardening next year.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I say on no dig, I'm just seeing so many headlines in a lot of the gardening magazines and even in the newspaper the other day. It does seem to be a thing at the moment. There's definitely a trend. So, certainly on the plot, I'm going to give it a go maybe for next year too.
Brilliant. We can confer notes on how our sun lounges worked and how our no digging gave us so much more extra time to actually sit and enjoy our garden.
I need a lot of cardboard. That's what I need to get on my shopping list. Yes.
Oh right, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because that works as a sort of mulch, doesn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
But equally, I must say, someone on the allotment, a few plots up, has obviously been learnt about this, and it's fantastic that they're doing it. But take the sellotape off the cardboard, because the cardboard rots down, the plastic of the tape is left there, and it blows across onto your neighbour's allotments. I keep on finding like bits of brown tape. Where's all this coming from? But it's all off their packaging. But
indeed.
That's life. There's always something going on, isn't there?
Excellent. Excellent. So I think we're that's the roundup of September in the garden as far as jobs, Peter. It's going to be quite a busy month. As I say, it's often heralded as the start of the gardening year. Well, maybe this year, perhaps just a preamble into the autumn.
That's it. And what's our next show about, Chris?
So next show we're going to be chatting all about grapevines.
Okay.
And wine, more importantly.
Wine. Now
Yes.
that's definitely always worth listening out about. Okay, so this is Tim Chafford,
Chafford, yeah.
who's our local. Well, I think he must be our closest vineyard owner. He's
most definitely.
as the crow flies. I'm going to say about a couple of miles from
Yeah,
here.
in fact, yes,
over in
Gorcott.
Gorcott, so not far at all.
Yeah.
And I think he gave up the 9 to 5 sort of working life and ventured out into starting a vineyard.
Yes.
And I think it's lovely stuff.
It's very nice. I recommend his Bacchus. It's my favourite tipple.
There's a few sort of English vineyards that I've had wine from, and to be fair, they do produce some really lovely white wines.
They do, yes.
So it'd be really interesting to find out a little bit more from Tim about what his recommendations are, and looking forward to that.
Yep.
Excellent.
So there'll be a couple of weeks' time. We'll have a chat with Tim Schaefer.
Brilliant. Okay, and I guess the other thanks, Chris, we should really sort of say thanks to all our listeners,
Indeed.
as usual, and please carry on sharing if you're still enjoying listening to us.
Yeah, indeed.
Our details with your friends, and
And let us know. Yeah, if there's anything, anybody we've not talked to in the world of gardening, you'd love to hear us chat to.
it's a good idea.
please,
Any
please,
subjects you want us to cover, please let us know.
Yeah, we're open to any suggestion in the world of gardening and nature.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Okay, well, thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Peter. Today's show was brought to you by Buckingham Garden Centre and Nurseries. The show was hosted by Chris Day and Peter Brown. The show was produced by Peter Brown. And our thanks to Chiltern Music Therapy for providing the music. Thanks for listening.
At Chiltern Music Therapy, we want everyone to know the difference that music can make in their lives. From parents and their premature babies in hospital to grandparents with dementia. We provide music therapy and community music services to people of all ages and needs across England. We work both digitally and in person in people's homes, care homes, schools, hospitals and hospices. Find out more at chilternmusictherapy.co.uk.